let's get my show bike. Let's get it going. Let's restore it. Let's do this. And when I say show bike, I mean TV show, not show, that kind of show. Yo, first I just want to do a shout out to my boy Jetty. I miss you, bro. So just want to do a shout out. Ooh wee. Put it on a little Nutrisystem or a little diet. A little diet, yeah.
Sorry, bro, but this show's about me.
What's up, everybody? Just in case you didn't know, maybe you have seen this before.
Yeah, sorry, bro, but this show's about me.
Well, don't you ever judge a book by its cover. The next line I'ma be a little bit tougher. Don't let them fool you, no one has it under control. They're making up rules, telling you it'll be alright. Don't listen.
Yep, that was me. Damn near 20 years ago. So, in celebration of that, actually for other reasons, I put the FXR on hold. Waiting on some parts, but I have a lot of fabrication before the parts, so that's really not the issue, or what's going on with that. I will explain that more a little later. So, in celebration of 20 years, this guy's been fabricating bikes. Actually, 24 years. But the TV show was 20 years ago. So, well, actually, it's not 20 years ago. It's about to be 20 years ago. It'll be 20 years ago in, let's see, November, December, January, February, March, 5 months. So within the next 5 months, I am going to be restoring my bike, my TV show bike. Yes. 10 years ago, I tore it apart because I don't think we broke in the engine correctly. Obviously, you can see this bike came right off the lift and yeah, so that's not the proper way to break in a motor. So the bike was kind of damaged. The motor was kind of damaged, probably right off the get-go. And then I put flamethrowers on it. And I did an old school carbureted flamethrower style on it. So all you do when you do that is you're just washing the cylinders with gasoline. So you're taking out all of the lubrication like the oil and stuff. And so that probably didn't help it much. So what I did is I tore the bike apart. Not only that, is my wife rode around on it. Like, we hell raised on that bike a lot. And not saying she's got a big booty, but she got a big booty. No, just fabricating it so fast. I didn't do doublers. I didn't reinforce any of the areas that would be exposed. And then when I did the sissy bar, when you do a straight rod at 1/2 inch, no problem, that'll support a rider. But when you bend it, now you're making like a spring. So that was kind of bad. So all in all, the fender was cracking. Anytime I turned when I was riding by myself, you could hear like this weird noises because the cracks were kind of like. So I decided to tear the bike apart. I had it sandblasted. The whole bike was actually powder coated. A little snippet on that is you're supposed to build it in 30 days. They take away time for paint. They take away time for chrome. They take away time for powder coat, blah, 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 blah. That bike was built in 13 days. So yes, it was rushed. So of course, I think I fabricated in 8 or 9 days and then I assembled in 3 or 4. So it is what it is. The whole bike was powder coated. So the frame was powder coated. The gas tank was powder coated. So I re-powder coated the gas tank a couple of times. Once we rode the bike to Mexico to this rally in South Padre Island, which you take a little trip into Mexico. Of course, I have a small gas tank, so I had to put gas. Well, I guess I put in like regular, maybe it was just regular gas, not unleaded, not regular unleaded, but like regular gas. And on the drive home, it was in a trailer and it was bouncing around, and I topped it off when we got back in the States. Well, that gas came out and it stained. It put like these orange stains down the gas tank. Tony, my buddy Tony Cano, he's the one I went down there on the trip with. He attempted to color sand it and buff out the powder, but it was etched in there pretty deep. So I sent it back to the original powder coaters. They attempted to do it. It was a totally different shade from the frame. I didn't like it. Sent it back. Got it redone. So we were talking, I think they were charging me like $800 each time I had that gas tank powder coated. So $1,600 later, it still didn't match. I was like, whatever. Then I heard them. I think the last time I rode the bike, I was riding it with my buddy Stephen Owens. He had called me up. It's like, hey, we're gonna go up to McKinney. You should take your chopper. You should take your bike. Well, I think my bagger was down at the time, so I was like, hey, I'll just pull the chopper. I hadn't ridden that thing in forever. Last time I wasn't really sure. As soon as I fired it up and we rode down the street to go to the gas station, I was like, man, this motor just doesn't sound right. And he's like, man, it sounds tough. And everybody's like hooting and hollering because that bike is a famous bike, you know. So we rode to McKinney, and on the way back, I was riding it, and I'm like, man, this bike just doesn't sound the same. And for anybody that has had a bike for a long time, you know what your bike sounds like. I was listening to it, I was like, man, this bike doesn't sound right. So all in all, I took it back to the shop. I put it back in the showroom, and then I didn't pull it out. The next time I got around to it, I think it was when I bought my dad's FXR, and I was like, man, I need to get a bike going. So I tore my bike apart because I thought I was going to ride the FXR, and this is what I found. See the galled up piston? Yeah, it's bad on the other side as well, if not worse. And then what you can't see, I'm sure you can't see it in the video, I'll put it by my finger. That's a crack. So this is just one cylinder. This one just has a straight crack going straight up. One piston, excuse me. The other piston has a crack that goes up one side and the other side, like it was about to fall apart. So thank God I knew my bike was not right, and I stopped riding it and I tore it apart, found the damage before it came apart while I was riding it. So long story short, we're gonna get my TV show bike back up and running. There are a few things that I have changed. One thing that I'm in the process of changing is the handlebars. The handlebars were like crazy wide out. Well, from the show, if you look in the show, the handlebars lean back. I welded them up wrong for some stupid reason. So as soon as I got the bike to Texas, before anybody saw the bike, I took the bars off, I cut them, I reversed the bends so they curve forward instead of back. I looked like the guys from like California that drag race the baggers. So I put them back forward. Well, they were like this. So I was like a parachute riding out the road. I had my feet forward and forward controls, and I was just a big parachute going down the road. So what I've done now is I've decided I want to put mids on it. So I'm going to try to modify. Performance Machine doesn't make mid controls anymore. I've reached out. I've tried everybody. Nobody wants them. The only people I found is Greg Westbury has a set for sale, but he wants like $45,000 to $65,000 for them because they come with the bike that he has a set on. That's a joke. I'm going to try to make some mounts, or maybe even get Justin, my machinist, to help machine some pieces. I'm going to make my own, and then maybe even have my neighbor down the street from my house 3D print them so I can make sure everything works. But I want all of the arms and everything to be Performance Machine forward controls that I turn into mid controls. So that's the project that I'm going to work on. The other thing is I decreased the size of the front brake. I just want a brake just for if I'm on a hill or something like that. I can just hold the front brake and it'll sit me there. So I went from 11 inch, or yeah, what's it, 11 and a half inch rotor down to a 8-inch rotor, or 6-inch, 8-inch rotor. So I had to have new wheels made. So the whole front assembly is different. When I tried to build the bike, it didn't have a Performance Machine was out of the 2-piston calipers. So I used like a J-brake one. So I got rid of that, and I bought me a Performance Machine chrome 2-piston caliper. So that's going on it. The handlebars, instead of here, we're going to bring them in and bring them down just a little bit, so they're a little bit more comfortable. Not so much of a like this, but I want to be about a little bit past shoulder width, and a little just barely above my shoulders. So we're going to change that. I did change the top clamp on the Springer. The top clamp on the Springer before was just a stock one. They kind of bolted down, and then the bars came out of that, so you saw the bolts. So I ordered a new top clamp. It's from Crow Customs. It's called the Crow's Foot. And what it does is it's all cast, and it's the top clamp for springers, which I run a Paco Springer, Paco Narrow Glide Springer. So I'll replace that clamp. Well, what it has is it has the bases for handlebars cast in it. So I'm going to plug in my bars, and then I'm going to plug weld it, and then I'll braze it, and then clean it all up. So the top clamp and the bars are going to be one piece all together. So that's going to be very cool. The grips were oversized grips from Exile Cycles. So I'm going to go with the smaller 1-inch grips because the big ones just felt weird and they're big. So I'm going to be doing Speed Dealer grips, the 1-inch grips. I'll do them in the polish. So the bike is going to be, it's going to be hard to notice the differences. I'm telling you all the differences, but 90% of the people that saw the bike before and saw it now will never notice the differences. I'm going to, what else? Gonna configure the pipes just a little bit because they used to slap real hard. The chain, if the chain got loose, it would slap against the pipes and it was kind of eating up the pipes. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do on that. If I do have to rebuild the exhaust, I'll rebuild it exactly the way it is, but this time I'm going to do it in stainless so it's got more of a throaty sound to it, and then I'll get it black coated again, but it's going to be the same thing where it comes down the right side, crosses in front of the fender, and exits the left side with those cool little things that from the show, you'll hear us talking about that. And then I'm going to paint it. I'm probably going to have Tony Cano's going to flake it out, and then we're going to paint it candy blue. And then I will get Loki to do some pinstripe, maybe a little bit of silver leaf. I'm going to try to go back with the original pinstriping, but I'm going to have him put a little bit of his touch on it and add some leafing in it. Not big leafing. The leafing will be in the actual, like the pinstriping, not blocks or anything like that. So I think it's going to look killer, and I'm excited. I'm not putting passenger pegs. My wife says she will not ride this bike, but I will put thicker bars on it just in case she ever we're somewhere and we just need to ride down the street or something like that. She can just jump on, we ride down the street, she gets off. No big deal. Plus, it'll just be more stout, stiffer support. But other than that, the bike's going to be exactly the same. I'm going to touch up some stuff, clean up some wiring, clean up some brake lines like I did when I got it home from California. If you look in the show, all the cables were exposed. When I got it home, I drilled holes and I put all the lines inside the springer, inside the frame. Like, I just cleaned it up a lot when I got it home. So there's a lot of stuff I couldn't fix and a lot of stuff I could. So all the little stuff I could fix, I did. And then after riding it for 10 years, now there's little tweaks that I want to change, like the handlebars, the foot controls, just stuff like that. So we're going to restore this bike. So it's upstairs. There's no way to get it down. It's on a build stand. So we're going to bring it down. I'm going to use the forklift, and let's get my show bike. Let's get it going. Let's restore it. Let's do this. Come with me. Let's do this. I'm going to run upstairs, get it all situated, and then you can see me bring it down. So let's do that. So here it is, the TV show bike. People ask if I still have it, and I still have it. But it does look a little different than it did from the show days. This is the show bike, so let's get the show bike back to a go bike. And when I say show bike, I mean TV show. Not show, that kind of show. TV show. This is a TV show bike. This is a bike I built on the TV show. And this is the bike that I'll be riding quite a bit once we get it back together. I'm excited. But this is what we're going to be working on at night instead of the FXR for now. All right. I'm going to put the axle cap so it doesn't accidentally fall off. Or not axle caps, but axle nuts. If you notice, it's more of like a spool hub. I don't remember if I mentioned it or not, but this wheel hub was actually built by, I believe, Derek Sieber of DS One Off on Instagram. He was in Ohio. Now he's out with the Chop Shop, I think. But anyways, we still keep in contact. He did a lot of work for me. We did some trading and stuff like that. Actually, I think I had an extra caliper and an extra small disc, and we swapped for it or something like that. But anyways, he machined this small hub that bolts on an adapter that holds the little 8-inch disc, so that way I could have the spokes really long, so it elongates the wheel and makes it look really tall. But so once I got the hub from him, I sent it off to Black Bike, and they made the spokes and the hoop and the hub and everything work. So now I got me a tall, skinny wheel, and then I'm gonna have that little brake, that little tiny brake. And then I'll show you how it all goes together, because we still have to weld, because the way it floats and stuff like that, he wasn't sure where to weld the brackets for everything, so he machined some brackets for me. I'll either use those or I'll modify them. But another thing that I'm going to change on this bike is springers always come standard with the brake on the right hand side. I'm not really going to use the brake that much on the front, just for heels and stuff. So I'm actually going to switch it. So I'll be repowder coating the rear legs of this Springer, because I'm going to take the mount off of the right hand side, and I'm going to put a mount on the left hand side, so that way the brake disc is on the left hand side, because it runs a sprotter, an Exile sprocket rotor. So it's got the sprocket and the rotor, so the chain and the brake are all on the left hand side of the bike. The front disc is be on the left hand side, so I'll have a right side show side. So anytime the bike is just chilling there, it'll look like just a spool hub, and the little disc will be on the back side. It's going to give it a cleaner look. Like I said, small, subtle changes. A lot of people won't notice, but I will. We'll start addressing the brake situation, and we'll start machining some wheel spacers. And I'm going to do that. Because what I want to do is I want to make sure that this tire sits exactly in the center of the Springer. And then once the wheel spacers are in on one side at least, which will be the show side, then we can start putting on the adapter and start spacing things out. We're going to start at the front end and probably start working our way back to the front end, bars, move our way back. Maybe the front end, and then the ass end, and then the middle stuff. So let's go. So I got the wheel off the bike, and like I said previously, this is a spool hub that I had custom built by Derek Sealer of Derek's DS1 Off on Instagram. And I told him I want a spool hub that's really, really tiny. No, I didn't just say that. So I want a hub that is very tiny, but I still want to run a rotor. So instead of running a 10.5 or 11.5, this is like an 8-inch rotor. Yeah, I get it. It's so pretty. So anyways, I reached out to him, and he goes, dude, I got you. I'll build you a full custom hub. So he built me a custom hub. He also made me all the mounts. Now we're talking 8 years ago, I think he made all this stuff, and it's been sitting in a shelf or in a drawer this whole time. So he made everything I needed. He goes, you're going to have to set it all up spacing wise and then do a weld and all that other stuff. So no problem, I got it. So this is basically how it goes. The hub has little tiny bolt holes. So because there's little tiny bolts, he put a lot of them on there. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like 8. With flush mounted, I guess they're tapered, which would be like a countersunk bolts. So those 8 go on first. So let me get this bolted together. It's an extremely tight fit, so I don't want to pull the threads out of the aluminum. So now that I have it lined up, I'm going to tap it with this mallet. All right, I think we're bottomed out now. So now I can go ahead and tighten up these screws. Some people would probably machine that a little bit loose, a little bit more loose, a little looser. I want the tightest fit because I don't want any play, any slack, anything like that. So what's nice about this little adapter for this little baby spool hub is you probably could have done a hub without it, but the spokes, when you see it through the one side, the spokes are going to be long. They're not going to be short on one side. Black Bike does offer It's a pretty damn nice spool hub. I saw it in person the other day when I was actually at their facility. The only thing, because I'm detailed and anal about things, is it has short spokes on one side and longer spokes on the other side because of the flange being for the rotor. The flange is a little bit bigger on one side and spool hub on the other side. So you got short spokes here and then long spokes here. I don't care for that look. It's not a flaw in their design. It's a great design, and it's something that can just be ordered and purchased and done. I just happen to source out people that I know that can do that stuff. So I became Instagram friends with Derek online, and he's done a few things. We've done some horse trading. So what's really cool about this setup that he did, and so now you can see I have long spokes on both sides. So those are countersunk. So when I put this disc on there, it sits perfect. So the countersunk bolts will never back out. So that's pretty cool. I'm not trying to do stoppies. All I'm trying to do is to keep the bike from rolling when I have my feet down on the ground, because it is jockey shift. So a lot of people are like, oh, don't be a puss. I'm too old to be cool, so call me a puss all you want. Mind you, this is all just hand tight. I'm not riding the bike, so I'm not torquing anything. Look at that little guy. When you turn it this way, you see all the spokes. So now I just want to check spacing on some stuff. Ooh, my chi-chi itches. So this is, it's machined with the brass bushing. Actually, the brass is all the way through, and then it has this inner sleeve. So this will rest against the inner race. Boop. And then this is where, so because it's a Springer, it's got to float. So it'll float. So I will be able to weld it. I'll probably weld it on the back side and polish it. I'll polish it first before I do final welding. But I'll weld it really good on the back side. That way I really don't have to weld it on the outside. But I might weld it on the outside because I really want the spacers to look symmetrical on this bike. So we'll have to see what I do here. I might weld it on the back side and then machine this smooth so that the next axle spacer will bump up against it, and then I'll make it the same size as the other side so that they both have the same taper, so it'll look symmetrical when installed. It's all spaced out just right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it over to the bike and we'll run an axle through it. I'm going to have to probably get some zip ties to hold the caliper so it's not like just floating around, and then we'll start measuring for axle spacers on the left side. I'll get that one made, but while I'm doing that, we'll take a look at this and see what we're going to do to make it pretty. I think I'm going to make a tapered spacer that goes over the top, just kind of like a look cool one with a set screw so it covers the bolts and stuff so you don't see those. And it'll be all polished down, and then black spacers coming out from it to the Springer. Actually, I could do it out of stainless, and if I did it out of stainless, then it would just all be shiny chrome. Or not shiny chrome, but polished stainless. So let's take a look at it and we'll see from there. So here it is mounted up on the bike. Like an idiot, I was like, it's not spinning. It's because I have the brake zip tied to the wheel. So, but that's what it's gonna look like, little tiny. I think it looks so killer. Little bitty. Just like I said, just enough to keep me from rolling when I have put it neutral and both feet are down. Check it out from the other side. You can almost not even tell that there's a disc on there. That's just so cool. So now, like I said, we're gonna take some measurements here and see. Well, first, obviously, this spacer is way too long because it has the wheel touching the Springer on this side. So we're gonna take some measurements, get this thing back centered, and then we'll take some measurements, machine this one down, so that way I can get everything centered. And once this is machined down, then we can start making our spacers. I don't think I'm going to be able to get them to be exactly the same matching, but I will do my very best to make it look as symmetrical as possible. So as I was machining it, then I was like, oh, brain fart, you forgot to do this face first, so that way you know how much extra you're gonna have, because I'm gonna have to machine some of this out to get it to space off of the bearing. Ooh, so you can already, hopefully you can see how it's starting to take shape. I think I want a sharper taper, so because I still have enough material, I didn't machine it all the way down, so now I can cut a little space here to separate the spacer from the hub, so that way it doesn't grind, like rub against it. And then I can go ahead and adjust my radius machine, and I can get this a lot tighter, and then I can come in and smooth it all out and make it one piece. So let me go ahead and cut the piece. You don't want your spacer to be completely flat like this, because what it's going to do is it's going to touch the inside race and the outside race of the bearing, and then depending on if this bearing is pressed inside this hub, which it is, the first thing that's going to push is the spacer against the hub, which you don't want that. You want it to just go around this piece right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure about how far out, how thick this is, and just go just past it. So we'll measure that out, and then we'll just go in and cut out, in and cut out, and then it'll leave a little bit of material sticking out in the inside, but the outside will be further back. So when it pushes against there, it'll be a little tiny slot so that there's room to move, but we want it as close as possible, so that way when it's anodized, it'll look like one piece, like the hub just flows into the springer. So let me get that cut. We'll do a couple of cuts on that, and then we will double check it, and once it fits, we'll go back and we'll finish it up with the radius cutter. Kind of stinks because I should have done that when I had everything, so I have to switch tools back and forth, and that just takes time. Alrighty. Time of truth, or truth of time traveler? I don't know. Woo-wee! Got hot all of a sudden. I like to put my sleeves on because when I'm working with those aluminum, and did you see how it was catching and spinning all crazy? Well, then it just beats the crap out of you, but really happy with this fit. Now, I did have to shave it down a little bit. I didn't show that, so my clamps kind of scratched it up a little bit, so I could probably clean it up, but I think what I'm going to do is let the polisher clean it up before anodizing, and then I think I'm going to round. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So, see the little dink in it, and little scratches. Those will polish out. Oh, that's another little dink in there. So, anyways, it'll polish out. Then I'll probably put a little. When I clean this up, I'll probably round this edge a little bit because it looks a little weird going into this because this is so rounded. But I'm gonna leave it straight for now. But look at how tight that looks. That looks so good. Looks so good. And then this spacer's probably the same width as from here, so it tapers there, here, and then down. I could have gone sharper on this, but I think it looks good like that. So now it's time to work on the other side, but the problem I have on the other side is these bolts are contacting with that screw, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I might go ahead and countersink this and then put countersink bolts, kind of like the sprocket, the exile rotor, how they're countersunk, and then it would match. That's not a bad idea, not at all. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and make spacers, but I kind of want to clean up, kind of want to put a spacer so that it hides all of this, because I don't know why, but just because I think it'll look better. It's kind of hard to show you what I'm talking about. It's kind of hard to do because see how once this is lined up, there's a gap there, so it's not really going to hide all of that, which I would rather hide it, especially at the bottom. But then again, this bike is 3 to 4 foot off the ground, so you wouldn't really see it, but that's just how I roll. Yeah, I think I want to make a spacer. Not sure how I want to do it though. So let me think about this for a little bit, and then I'll let you know what I come up with. Yeah, so this is the third one I've made because I keep measuring like way off. So like I'm so frustrated. There's aluminum all over the shop and I haven't done nothing but screw this up. So hopefully this is the last time. Another chunk. I'll explain what's going on in my head. I don't have it written down, so it's hard for me to explain to you what I'm gonna do because it's here, it's not on here. So let's get back at it and see what happens. But yes, third one, over it. I've got everything kind of machined and done, but I ran into a few problems. The outer diameter on this bottom piece, because of the spacing, it's hitting the front leg of the Springer. My plasma cutter cuts up to about 11 gauge. Anything over that, it starts to put a kerf in it. What a kerf is instead of being a straight cut, it kind of cuts at an angle, at a taper. So you got to grind and clearance and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do, and it kind of looks a little bulky, I'm going to go ahead and make a new one of these. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to design it. I'm going to take it to my friends over at 313 Design. They have a laser cutter, and this is stainless, so it wouldn't come out very nice if I cut it. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out, have it redesigned so it doesn't do this. It should, right now, the way it is, this should be swinging. I should be able to touch it and it should swing, but it's hitting against that, so it's not. So see how I have to like force it? Not only that, is it's because of the size of everything, it's kind of making everything look bulky. See how bulky this looks? It looks clean as shit, it just looks bulky. So usually I try to get things to be the same size all the way through, like on the axles and stuff like that, but this just looks too big for such a skinny front end. It just looks huge. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and take this diameter down, and then I'll start doing stuff on the other side to kind of slim it out. See how that looks? It's just kind of bulky. So we're gonna go ahead and end right now. I'm gonna go ahead and take this apart, get this taken off, and then I'll take it over to my buddy Neil and ask him to laser cut me one, and we'll come back and try to thin this out, kind of put it on a little Nutrisystem or a little diet, yeah. So we'll get this done, and then we'll come back to this. So I think I'm gonna end this one here. But so far, everything else it looks really good. See how it transitions from the wheel to the spacer, so you don't see any wheel bearing. That's what I like. That's what I like. And then once this comes over, see how this is going to be welded, and then there still has to be a spacer that comes from here to here, which this is going to be fun to make. But anyways, once I relieve that space, this rotor is going to get really close to this bolt. So now I got to figure out how I'm going to, see how close this bolt is? It like touches. And it's already a thin castle nut, so I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to get all of this to work, but I'm going to figure it out some way, somehow. If I got to maybe machine this spacer to move the disc in, but I got to see how much clearance I have from the spokes to the caliper. And then unfortunately, years ago when I sent this out and he made me all this cool stuff, I lost the hardware that holds everything together. All I have is the bolts that hold the mount, the caliper to the mount. So I got to get all that. And then for brake pressure, I cut this chipboard out and I put one behind each one, and it pretty much centers the pads in here, which was centering the disc in here. So I would have my left to right, because I'm going to try to get it nailed down as perfect so I don't have to have any spacers to shim this in or out. I should just be able to bolt it on and it should work. This will be floating a tad bit, because on the springers these are supposed to float, because when this moves, this caliper needs to move and stay square. So a lot of stuff goes into setting up the brakes on a Springer front end, just because it moves. It's not locked down like most calipers in the back and stuff like that. So I want to get this wheel addressed and all the wheel spacers done, and everything's ready to go rock and roll on this. And then we're going to do the back. Anyways, back to that. We're going to fix this, get this done. So let me get this taken off and sent out. Hopefully in a couple of days. He can cut me a new one in a couple of days, and we can get rocking and rolling on that. And then the back, then we'll start on the back spacers, which shouldn't be too hard. Cool.